Hello everyone, my name is Daryl Majerison and I'm from D&G Solutions Group. Thank you for coming along today. This is the first webinar we're going to do in a series, and it's all around our mantra of consult, provision, secure and manage. The consulting part is what we're really doing now, is really trying to understand your business and what the market is like, what the pressing needs are around issues around security. We get to better understand your business. We can then look at what solutions best fit in, making sure that we deliver securely, because every business now has to ask the question, how long could we actually be down for? You know, security and the risks of trying to get back quickly are paramount. And the last part of that is then managing that environment. We've recently gone through a merge with IT&C, a national company that's based in Sydney, and that's exciting for us because it now gives us national coverage and also the ability to offer services and support 24/7, which is a big thing in this environment, especially if you want to be secure. And it's also quadrupled our size of people, which we think is good. So people are probably asking why we picked Datto today as the first solution set, and Datto has a lot of products in this space. Well, I think the amazing thing with Datto is they don't sell direct, they only sell through resellers. So what that means is if we didn't think it would work, if they didn't have a good set of products and offerings, then we wouldn't actually be giving that to our customers, potential and existing, because it just wouldn't work. Their flexibility also covers the whole spectrum of the SMB or small market right up to enterprise. They've got stuff that works both in-house and in the cloud, and Peter will go through a bit more of that today. And the other part about the flexibility of what we're offering is, if anything is of interest now, and we'll take some questions at the end, I think you can type them up and both Peter and myself and the rest on the panel will be able to answer it, is we can offer pilots as well. So if there's something that resonates with you, and the whole point of this is that we can have further discussions, then we can now offer a pilot program where we can put things in at no cost to you so that we can make sure it works. So what I'd like to actually hand over now to Peter, who will sort of set the scene why security and especially recovery is so important. It's one thing to back up and be secure, but how do you actually recover? That's the most important thing. So I'll hand over to Peter now, who will take us through the major part of the journey.
Brilliant. Thank you, Daryl, for that introduction, and thank you everyone for giving me your time to have a chat today. That's me, Peter Eldon. So I'm a Senior Channel Development Manager at Datto. So what I want to do today is tell you a little bit about Datto and push past or go further with some comments that Daryl made there about what we do and how we can help. So the first thing I want to do is tell you a little bit about Datto, because what we're asking and the D&G team to do, as well as you guys, is trust us with your data. So we're going to be worthy of that trust, and so we'll explain that through. So we're a US-based company out of the East Coast of the US. We just actually floated on the New York Stock Exchange in the last month or so. But the important part from our coverage in Australia is we have two data centers, one in Sydney and one in Melbourne. And that's important because any data that we hold for clients stays within the Australian sovereignty, which is obviously an important part of your compliance. We're also in every other continent there are people, and we have data centers across the world. We're a very technical business, so there's about 1,700 staff in Datto, and 70% of them are either building our solutions or supporting customers on the phones. And as Daryl said, we are 100% channel only. And what that means is we only engage MSPs and integrators like D&G Solutions, because we're very good at that data protection and data recovery. But organizers like MSPs and D&G are brilliant at understanding the customer and those customers' needs. So when you put that together, you get a really nice solution. You get a industry-leading vendor with a heavy focus consultative customer service MSP, and then you as the end customer gets best of both worlds. We have over 500 petabytes of data under our protection, and that comes down to over 150,000 devices globally that are protecting customers' businesses every day. But what I wanted to do today was talk a little bit about business continuity and business resilience. And, you know, technology in which we offer is only part of this solution. So, you know, it needs to be a strategy, and it needs to be a policy that you have in place, a business continuity strategy. That means no matter what the event that happens, be it a physical event, a virtual event, a pandemic, fires, floods, whatever it is, you have a action plan to recover and make sure that your business can get through that, and you have technologies in place that allow you to do so. So what we're going to do quickly is just talk about the 5 best practices steps to protect your data. So number 1 is a firewall. And for the people who are not technical on the call, and I'm one of them, so a firewall is a bit of equipment that sits on the edge of your network, and it makes sure that anything electronically that comes into your network, into your business, should be there. And the best way I explain a firewall is it's kind of like a bouncer at a nightclub, right? The bouncer in a nightclub, their job is to make sure whoever comes into that venue is going to behave themselves and should be there and are dressed appropriately. And that's what the firewall does on your business. It sits there and checks emails and data coming in and goes, all right, I'll let you in, but don't start anything, and make sure that they're reputable and can be trusted. And the second one is the spam filter. Now, if we were all in the same room, I'd ask you guys now, whose spam filter is a little bit annoying and sometimes picks up things that isn't spam? And a few of you guys would put your hands up, and I would say good, because you want your spam filter to be a little bit annoying. You want your spam filter to be wound a little bit higher, because if it's picking up things that aren't spam, then it's definitely picking up the things that are spam and what are these bad actors that are trying to infiltrate your business. And then a server and endpoint antivirus. And this clearly isn't something we need to talk about anymore. Everyone understands the importance of an antivirus, and to make sure it's a next generation one that's always been looking forward to what the bad guys are doing and how it can help protect your data. And then this next point is really one that the conversation is changing. Is one that I really do recommend that you review and look at hard, which is staff training and cybersecurity awareness. Because as I said, technology will only go part of the way. But technology will never be as good as an educated, motivated staff member. And so, you'd be amazed how many things are picked up by just one person sticking a head out of a cubicle and saying to the other person, hey, did you send me this weird email? No, I didn't, just delete it. So making sure that your staff are aware of their obligations and the risks to data, and particularly in this work from anywhere and work from home environment we find ourselves in with 2020. And clearly that's not going to go away post 2020. Because I think one of the few benefits of this year will be, a fundamental change in how we look at our work practices. But then that makes this more important, because if you've got a displaced workforce using, non-business grade routers and things like that, then them understanding their obligations and their requirements around protecting your data is really important. And then the final piece here, which is the one that Datto does, which is a recent and easily recoverable copy of your data. And so what that means is, a copy of your data that can't be corrupted, that you can easily recover from in the event or when there's attack. Because when we talk to our MSPs, so we talk to our partners like D&G Solutions, they tell us that all of these points here are important on the journey of customer data protection, but that final one, that basic business continuity disaster recovery, is the most important one. Because everything else on this pathway up the mountain, they're all preventative. So antivirus, employee training, patch management, all these things are vital, but they're all preventative. They have to work 100% of the time. The only one that allows you to recover after an attack is a BCDR solution, a business continuity solution. And in fact, what it is a time machine. It allows you to go back before the physical or virtual event and recover your data from before the accident happened. So just quickly, what do we do? This is as technical as I will get. It's as technical as I can get. So what we do is, in working with D&G Solutions, we would put and there's 2 places that data can live. There's data that lives on your premises. So when you've got servers in your workplace or in a data center that are giving you your applications. And then there's data in the cloud, or what we'd call SaaS providers like 365, G Suite and the likes. And I'll break that down as 2 separate solutions. So this first one is for your servers and computers on your premises. And so what we do is, in conjunction with D&G Solutions, we put a physical piece of hardware into your premises. And that hardware talks to all your critical infrastructure. So your physical servers, your virtual servers, even important PCs on your network. And what the Datto device does is it takes a snapshot of those critical servers and holds it on the Datto device. Now, if you notice there, I didn't say a backup. I said a snapshot of the server, because a backup, all the backup does is take the files. What we do is we take a copy of that entire server. So the operating system, the drivers, and your applications and your critical files and folders in there. And what we do is we keep a copy on the Datto device, and we also use our own IP to send a copy of that of your servers to the Datto cloud, which I said is in Sydney and Melbourne. So from a DR standpoint, that's best practice, because what you've got there is 3 copies of your data, 2 on site and 1 air gapped in the cloud. And from a DR, disaster recovery, that's great. But we're talking about business continuity here, not disaster recovery. So where the smarts are in our solution is in that device there, we have redundant CPU and memory. So it's like having spare servers on standby. So let's say you have a micro event on site. So let's say one of your critical servers crashes. Could be running your CRM, your invoicing, whatever it is. That server's crashed and it's not working. You call the D&G guys and they look at it and it's a really big problem. Now, in a normal backup scenario, you would now be offline from that server until Daryl and the team fix that server. They might have to get Dell come out with a truck or whatever it is to fix it. All the time, your staff are sitting around waiting for this to fix. Now, depending on how big that problem is, that server could be down from 20 minutes to 2 weeks, depending on what's happened there. But with a Datto device in place, if that server was to die, Daryl and his team could instantly virtualize that server on the Datto device. And what that means is your staff would keep working. So there would be a problem with that server, it's not working anymore. Daryl's team remotely fire up the server on the Datto, and then from the latest snapshot, which could be as recent as 5 minutes ago, your team continue to work on that application, getting those files, whatever it is they need to do. While that's happening, the Datto device is still snapshotting or backing up the rest of your environment, and it's still backing up the server that's being virtualized. So we don't lose any data in that backup scenario. Then what happens is Daryl would roll a truck for a warranty job, whatever it is, to get this server fixed. All the time, you're still working. When that server's then fixed, Daryl's team would then cut you back from the Datto device back over to your server. No one was aware that there was a problem and you haven't lost any data. So a true business continuity solution. But let's imagine you're having a really bad day. So it wasn't just one server you lost your whole server room. And that could be because the air conditioner broke on it on the weekend and it got to 55 degrees in there and everything melted. It could be that you got a malware attack on your entire environment. It doesn't matter. Whatever was on that Datto device, Daryl's team can virtualize in the cloud for you and then deliver it back to you guys via a VPN or an RDP connection. It could be to everyone's homes, could be to a serviced office, could even be Daryl's boardroom, right? And you're all working out of Daryl's boardroom while you resolve the major incident on your site. While that's happening, we provide that free of charge, and you can keep the lights on, you can keep trading, you can keep providing customer service to your customers. We would then send you out a new Datto device that Daryl and his team would use to rebuild your environment and then cut you back over. So again, a true business continuity solution, regardless of the event, be it a small event or be it a major event that just affects you, or it could be affecting your entire suburb or your city. You have the confidence with a Datto device that you'd always have access to your data and your critical applications, no matter what the event. And all of that is backed up by our 24-hour 365 support. And this is really important because what in effect we're doing is we're offering D&G Solutions and you guys as well is a service rather than software and hardware. And so you're paying for an outcome. And that outcome is that your data is always safe and always available no matter what the event. And that changes how we support people. Because if we're selling software and hardware, then there's a lot less responsibility on us. We just got to make sure they're both working. But when you're providing an outcome, which is that access, it means we've got to give the support to be able to deliver that. And so no matter what the event, is it a small event that's just affected you, or is it a major event that's affected the D&G Solutions team, you've got the full backup of the Datto team in the background will help you get through that scenario. And this is what the devices look like. They just look like servers. The important thing to remember, though, is that we go from 500 gig to 100 TB. So no matter the size of your business or how much data you have, there is a device that would fit your particular needs. And what we're saying to businesses is we really need to rethink backup because the threat profiles change and the risks change, and thus so do our responses. Because when we think about a disaster, these are the types of disasters we kind of think about. We think about a physical event that's hit a business. And that actual picture is actually from Brisbane. That's Eagle Street in Brisbane from floods that happened, 6 or 7 years ago now. But, when these type of disasters hit, they have major impact on a business. And this is where a business continuity strategy is really important. But this isn't the disaster that's most likely to hit your business. On a day-to-day scenario, the biggest type of disaster that could hit a business, and again, if we're all in the same room, I'd get some suggestions. And if anyone was thinking humans or staff, that's the right answer. So the biggest disaster that's most likely to hit your business is your staff. But that's not really fair on your staff because your staff need to be online. They need to be getting information back into the business. They need to be going to different sites. But the problem is they can't trust the information that's coming back in because we have bad actors, we have nefarious organizations that are actively trying to trick them and steal your data away from your business. And when we look down at the breakdown of what causes data loss or interruptions in services, human error and ransomware take up about 96% of all downtime incidents. Hardware failure, look, we're getting pretty good at that these days, right? There's quite a bit of redundancy in PCs. And natural disasters, well, as I said, when they hit, they're significant, but hopefully you shouldn't be having to deal with many of them. Although the way 2020's been going at the moment, we've had quite a few and we've still got the season finale to come up. So let's have a bit of a deep dive around ransomware and malware, because unfortunately, this is the thing that's probably most likely going to impact your business and cause cost and downtime. So a little bit of a history of this. The first malware attack, so the first crypto attack we saw in Australia was in 2013. And what would be happening is you'd be working on your computer and all of a sudden everything would freeze up and a big Australian Federal Police logo would appear on the front of your screen. And underneath it, it would say, you've been doing something illegal or immoral on your computer and you're getting a $1,500 fine. And it's the internet, so 50% of people were doing something illegal or immoral on their computer, so a lot of them thought it checked out. But this $1,500 fine back in 2013 was a money order to India. And that's how you paid it, supposedly from the Federal Police. But you'd be amazed how many people paid that because they'd never seen anything like that before. They just thought it was genuine. Now, that's a real watershed date for us at Datto and also in the security industry. Because we say now that anything before that date was BC, before crypto. And anything after that date is AC, after crypto. We're the only ones who use that BC wording, honest. But this is the important thing. And this is, if you take one thing out of the webinar, this is what I'd recommend that you take away. If your backup technology and strategies from around 2013, then they're not equipped to protect you after that date. Because this was a game changer. Everything up until this date of 2013 in the industry we were building solutions to protect you against a physical event. So, server crashing or dying, fire, power outage, whatever it is. We weren't sitting and coming up with strategies and technology to protect you from someone actively trying to steal your data away. And then it was after this date when we've had to have a significant mindset change and a change in technology on how we now protect data. So it's important to make sure that the systems and the technologies that you're using are equipped to protect you from the risks that we see right now. Yes, there are still physical events that happen and they can be really bad to a business, but we need to focus on these nefarious organizations and how they're trying to actively steal our data away. And, this is what they look like. So if you see one of these, you were having a bad day. And it's important to understand that these aren't fat kids sat in their mom's basement just playing computer games. These are highly organized criminal gangs, and in some cases, enemy states. And so what they're doing is they're using weapons-grade malware to attack government installations and defense contractors during the day. And then at night, these same people are moonlighting with this weapons-grade technology to attack small and medium business, particularly around APAC. If you look at the attack vectors, Commonwealth countries get hit very hard, and Australia and New Zealand are seen as a strong market for these criminal gangs. And we'll go into a little bit of that as to why we see more of it than other countries. And it's important to understand that these guys' entire business model is built around ransoming your data. So getting your data, holding it again from you, but giving it back to you if you pay the ransom, because that's their business model. They want to do that. And they're very organized. You can jump on here and they'll explain to you how to buy a Bitcoin if you're not sure. You can get on and rate their service after you've been on their call center and, give them a thumbs up, would recommend type of thing. Because the money that these guys see is phenomenal. There's one of these groups was doing over $1 million a day just out of Commonwealth countries because that's who they were focusing attacks on. And there's a couple of interesting ones. I'll show you this one. This is quite interesting. So this one here says you've been cryptoed and you can restore your files the fast and easy way, which is to pay them a Bitcoin and you get your data back. Or you can restore it the nasty way, which is if you get 3 other people infected, they'll give you your data back, which is scary, right? It's like Amway for malware. And so we've got to make sure that, we're using all these preventative measures that I've spoke about earlier around, antivirus and firewall and spam filter to protect. But none of those can guarantee they'll stop a malware from attacking. And we can't stop malware from attacking. But what we can do is we can guarantee that it won't succeed. Because when it's attacked by malware, because we're doing those hourly snapshots of servers, you simply recover back to before the malware attack, delete that old server, and continue on as if nothing had happened. And again, what I recommend is have a look at particular industries that you're in and have a look to see the styles of attacks that those industries saw. And I recommend doing that because you'll find some interesting tips and tricks as to how a business was attacked and how they got in. And then you can actually use that information to help better protect your business and, more importantly, educate your staff. So explain to staff about, these types of malware attacks that focus on our type of industry, and these are the things that you should look out for. And that was a law society in Queensland got hit. We see engineering firms, and this one's very true. One employee will click on anything. Unfortunately, that's me at Datto, and it is an issue. A couple of the big ones. I'm sure you guys would have seen a little bit about toll transport about maybe 3 months ago. These guys had a major attack. And again, if you went and talked to the IT people at Toll before this happened, they would have told you that they had a DR plan. They had a disaster recovery plan for sure. But it took nearly 2 weeks for them to get rid of the malware and try and recover back from their DR plan. Now, I would argue that if you're down for 2 weeks and you can't do your job, you're still in a disaster. And that's the difference between business continuity and disaster recovery. A business continuity plan allows you to keep trading while you remediate the problem. A disaster recovery plan means, well, you've got your data safe and we now need to recover that back, and that can take, a day up to a couple of weeks. And then another one here was Lion Nathan. Lion Nathan, obviously the owner of Forex here in Queensland. They also own a lot of dairy production. I wasn't too worried about the dairy, but the Forex did worry me. They had a significant attack out of Eastern Europe, and they were down for about a week trying to recover from that. And anyone in the medical industry, this is quite an interesting one. This is a Cabinary Hospital in Melbourne this time last year. This is a horror story. So they had what they thought was a good backup, and they were using a company. The bad guys came in, deleted the backups, and then hit them with a $65,000 ransom because they realized they'd got quite a large business and 15,000 medical records, which meant it was a significant ransom. They've got 2 people at this business trying to recover from that attack, and it will take them around 2 years to do so. So major interruption to their revenue streams, but also there's a reputational hit to the business by losing that and have to report that to the Privacy Commission and the likes. And let's have a quick look at the cost of recovering from a malware attack. So we survey our partners every year, so Daryl and the team, and they give us some feedback as to what they see out of the industry. And what we see is the cost to recover from a malware attack, if you don't have business continuity, is 23 times more expensive than the cost of the ransom. So if you look here, what we're saying is the average ransom last year was nearly $6,000, $5,900. But the average cost of downtime to trying to recover was around $141,000. And how do you get that figure? Well, if you think about if you're down, let's say you're down for a week, 5 days, business week. So you've still got your staff costs, you've still got lease on the building, you've still got to do all those type of things, but you don't have any revenue coming in, and that's how they work out that number. And so I know a number of you are probably sitting here going, well, okay, if it's going to cost me $6,000 to pay a ransom, as opposed to $141,000 worth of lost costs, should I just pay the ransom and just be done with it? Well, you can. Some businesses do. We don't recommend that, and we don't recommend that for 3 reasons. So if you pay a ransom, then you've told the bad guys 3 things. So the first thing you've told them is that you exist, because a lot of it's stuff spam. They don't even know they've got someone until you hit them on the email to say, hey, I just got a nasty email from you. Secondly, you've told them that your data is important to you because you're trying to negotiate to get it back. And then thirdly, you've told them that you've got money. And so you can guarantee that these guys will be back again to attack you because you've obviously been responsive and you've paid them a ransom. On top of that, if you do pay the ransom, then that is clearly a data breach, and you would then need to report that to the Data Breach Notification Act, which I'll talk a little bit later on as well. Whereas with a business continuity strategy and solution, if one of your servers is hit with a malware, you just talk to the Daryl and the D&G team, they would shut that server down. You would work off a clean version of that server on the Datto, so you can keep doing everything that's important. The D&G team would then destroy the malware on that server, rebuild it, re-image it, build it back from the Datto, and then you'll be trading none the wiser, not paying a ransom, not having a data breach. So we've talked a little bit about on-site, so in your premises when you've got servers running your applications. We've talked about the bad actors, the guys that were trying to come in and hit you with malware and physical events. So I want to talk just a little bit more about your data that's in the cloud, so SaaS applications. So we offer a SaaS backup solution for both G Suite and Office 365. And what that is for both of these tenancies, so both of these SaaS providers, we take a snapshot or a backup of your tenancy every 8 hours. So 3 times a day, if you're in Office 365, we will take a complete copy of your tenancy. So that's your mail, obviously, your OneDrive, your SharePoint folders, your Teams, everything. And we keep that in a separate location, readily available to you guys to recover in the event of a loss of data. Now, I'm sure a number of you are sitting there going, well, hang on a second, but I'm in the cloud. Why do I need to back up the cloud? Isn't it already backed up? Well, not really. So your SaaS providers work on what they call a mutual obligation license or agreement. And what that really means is they have some responsibilities as the vendor, and then you have some responsibilities as the owner of the data. And if we look here, what they say is Microsoft, and we'll use them as an example, they're saying that they're responsible to make sure that you can get access to the cloud. So they're going to make sure that they build their equipment right, and they've got redundancy in it, and they go and build it in the middle of a fire area, and they've got power, multiple power supplies and multiple internet connections. So they're going to make sure that you can always get access to the cloud. However, you as the data owner have got to protect the data that's held inside the cloud. And what do we need to protect the data from? Well, human error. So, fat fingers, just people deleting stuff accidentally and not realizing it's been deleted. Malicious insiders. And this is something that we see a fair bit around fraud. So someone's trying to steal money from a business, and so they're deleting invoices. It could be someone you've just exited from the business, and before they did, they're just deleting stuff accidentally without even thinking or trying to cover tracks. And then these two other areas here, which we're seeing an exponential increase in, which is external hackers and viruses and malware. Because as we said, just as these guys are criminal organizations, and just as they're attacking servers via malware and crypto, they're also looking for new strategies and where the industry is going on where they're going to make the money moving forward. And ransom cloud is a significant area, which we'll touch on in a second. And again, this is not just us saying this. This is directly out of Microsoft's terms and conditions. If any of you guys do have trouble sleeping, I can recommend terms and conditions. If you read them, you'll be in sleep within minutes. This is Microsoft's terms and conditions. I think it's page 3,752 from memory. Daryl can confirm that. And what they say is Microsoft has no liability for deletion of data in this area, and G Suite say exactly the same thing. And so what they actually say in their terms and conditions is you should, as a data owner, have the data held in a separate location, readily available, and that's what we do through our SaaS backup solution. And as I said, we see regular loss of data through this. Just very quickly, I'll just touch on Ransom Cloud, because this is quite an interesting one. So this gentleman on the screen here is a famous hacker by the name of Kevin Mitnick. And if anyone would like to see a video of what I'm going to show you, Daryl and the team can send this through to you. It's quite interesting. So what we did is we got this guy who's now a white hat hacker, who's a good guy, and we asked him, could you show us how easy it would be to build a campaign of malware that attacks Office 365? And spoiler alert, it was pretty easy to do. So what Kevin did is he built this program that looked like it was offering a free anti-spam software from Microsoft. And so you'd be working on 365, and all of a sudden this would pop up in your inbox, and it would go, we're offering you a free Microsoft Anti-Spam Pro. Now, everyone should have realized that this was a scam, because Microsoft don't give you stuff for free. So that should have been their first warning. But, this looks very legit in this email, and a lot of people will click on it. So what happens is when you click on it, it says, we just got to confirm that you're you, because there's a lot of bad guys out there. So it just gets you to quickly log in your credentials. As soon as you log in your credentials, Kevin had the ability to instantly encrypt that entire tenancy. So everything that was in that SharePoint, OneDrive, everything was encrypted. But he was quite clever in how he did it. So he encrypted it, but if you look there, what he did is he left the titles of the emails open, so you could see what important data you lost, but you couldn't see what data it was in. And we're in a very much a transactional business these days. And so the bad guys are working at transactional as well. So when I'm talking about this being instant, we're talking seconds. Suddenly it pops up. You then click on a button that tells you on how to pay your Bitcoin. And when you pay your Bitcoin, you suddenly get your data back. And this is like microtransactions. So the whole idea of this type of attack is it might only cost you $50 to pay to get your data back for one mailbox. But if you could imagine if you're running a business with 500 mailboxes and you're trying to be the administrator of that, all these multiple attacks on your inboxes is going to cost you money, but more importantly, it's also going to be a data breach, and that would need to be reported. So what I would say to you is, if you are using SaaS providers, it's important that you as the data owner does your reasonable due diligence on how they're protecting that data and how they could make that available to you if you lose the data, but also if you want to leave that business. So if you want to move from Xero to MyOrb or whatever, how easily can you get that data out of the cloud? And then just before we bring Daryl in to do a little bit of Q&A, I just want to talk a little bit about notifiable data breach. So I'm sure a lot of you guys on the call would have heard of this, and if you haven't, I'm just going to do a quick deep dive, and I'd recommend you talk to Daryl and the team about what this is and how it affects your business. So the Notifiable Data Breach Act is part of the Privacy Commission, and it was brought in by the federal government in February of 2018. And what this is a set of rules and responsibilities for Australian businesses that when they have a data breach, so a malware attack or a hack or something like that, it's guidelines and responsibilities on how they report that to the government, but also how they report that to potentially affected customers. And how do you know if a customer's been affected? Well, that's the hard bit. If you get a malware attack and you have to pay to get your data back, then the assumption is all your customers are affected and you need to tell all of them. And how do you tell them? Well, you might have to put big red letters on your website saying we've had a breach. You might have to put something in a newspaper advertising that. And you certainly would have to email all of your customers to talk about the potential breach and what data may be lost. And I recommend you jump on and have a look at the Privacy Commission site. So if you jump on and have a look at this site, because what it does, it gives you really good stats and information live as to what businesses have been attacked in Australia and the method that they were attacked. So if we say here now, very much like what I was saying earlier, some malicious hacks and malware and human error make up the absolute lion's share of business continuity attacks and data loss. So, human error, malicious attack is the lion's share, about 95%. When we look at the style attacks, so you'll see that malware's on there, brute force attacks, which is a hacker. And then the one that's growing exponentially is the phishing attacks. So the phishing attacks are the style of attacks where they'll impersonate your CEO or your CFO or a supplier, and they're going to pretend to be their email, and they're going to tell you to change an invoice payment gateway or to send money to somewhere. So they're going to pretend to be someone and try and trick you to do something that's going to be either give them access to your data or to just send them money, quite frankly. And again, if we look at these industries, if you're in any of these industries, then these are the industries that are on the hit list for the bad actors. So health, finance, education, insurance, professional services, construction. These are all businesses that the bad guys are actively coming up with campaigns to target. And why is that? Well, it's pretty clear, their industry that's that information heavy, they're all online, and there's reputational as well as monetary loss to that business in the case of a hack. Here's just a couple of examples of some businesses, some larger businesses just in one quarter of last year who were hit. And unfortunately, if you are dealing with any of these guys and you've, just put, for instance, Bunnings, right? You can put your email and your phone number in to get receipts. Well, unfortunately, that information was lost as part of a hack. And so what happens is you as a private citizen, you look at Bunnings going, well, what do I care if they know what type of sausage I like from my sausage sizzle? Fair point. But what they do is they build profiles on you by pulling the info from Bunnings. pulling it from the Marriott, because it's got your passport in there, pulling it from other systems that then builds a profile of you, which they'll then use to track you or your business. But again, for more information around data breach notification and the Privacy Act, talk to the team who will be able to give you more information on this. So with that, I am going to bring Daryl back in. I know I've given you an absolute ton of information, but we're just going to do a bit of a recap, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. So really, a lot of what I've said today has kind of been a bit of doom and gloom, and I do apologize for that, but it's important that we're aware of the risks so we can take the appropriate steps. The good news is, as much as the bad news is dire, the good news is a lot of this can just be explained and understood by taking the advice of people like D&G Solutions and MSPs, who are always at the forefront of these type of attacks and this type of loss. So, just as you use an accountant or a lawyer for accounting or legal advice, then go to an IT specialist for advice on how to protect your data and the value of your data to your business and how they can better protect it. So with that, Daryl, are you there?
And thanks, Peter. I mean, that was quite exciting and scary to listen to and see. So thank you very much for your time with that. I mean, that really shows that Datto is continuously thinking through things. And we can see in this day and age that we've got to keep daily looking at what's going on and keeping one ahead of the curve. So Brenton's got a quick question there, and it's to do with ransomware. What's the ratio of these businesses getting hit and the ones that actually pay the ransom?
Good question. So they're harder stats to get because no one really wants to put their hand up and go, I got hit and I actually had to pay the ransom. So it's bad enough being hit and then having to recover from, like Light and Nathan did on Toll Transport, but to then pay the ransom is an issue. So, the paying the ransom should be the absolute last case scenario, because two things. One, you're not guaranteed they will give you the data back. To be fair to them, and this is as fair as I'm going to get, they do pay the data back a lot, right? Because that is their business model. But funny enough, ethics isn't really the highest point on these guys' responsibility. So some of them just shut down and don't even bother turning it off. And so you might be hit by a zombie malware that there's not even anyone you can pay the ransom to because it's just running in the background there. So, if we look at the stats about this, about the amount of businesses that have been hit, and to give an example around COVID, since March, Google has seen over 14 million separate bad actor events tied to COVID alone. So 14 million different campaigns trying to get you to be tricked into clicking on a button because it said your job keeper's being declined, or the ATO are going to sue you because you didn't claim job seeker properly, or whatever it is, right? They're just looking for a hook where you go, oh my word, that's terrible. What does that mean? You click on it and boom, you get hit by it. So, when we look at that, and you look at every business who's been on this call talking to us today, your firewall and your spam filters will have picked up multiple attacks. There's a couple of areas here of benefits. So the dark web report is fantastic. What it is it's a business entity out there that trolls the dark web looking for compromised passwords and user names. Because what we do as humans, we tend to stick to patterns. So we'll use the same types of passwords, cadences with multiple accounts. And so what happens is there might be an attack on Bunnings is a good example, right? I'm not picking on Bunnings. I love Bunnings. But let's say that there's an attack on a business and you've used it as a loyalty, which is a password. Unfortunately, that password or a similarity of that password, you may use on your Salesforce or to get an ERP. And so the bad guys, what they do is they'll get usernames and passwords, and then they've got programs that will just smash every popular SaaS product out there looking for a match, and it'll hit there. So what ID Agent does is it looks for compromised credentials and then reports that back to the D&G team so they can come to you guys and go, hey, listen, does your CFO still, is this one of their passwords? Oh, it was. Well, you need to go back and make sure you move all of them, because that's potentially will see attack come into your business. From the training standpoint, Daryl is absolutely right. The money you will spend, look, the reality is the money you spend on all of these solutions to prevent attack is absolutely peanuts compared to the cost of you recovering from an attack. So when you look at, your firewall, your antivirus, the data cost, the training, every single business that is in the middle of a malware attack, if you go back and say, if you just pay this amount for a year's worth of all these services, we can go back in time and make this go away, everyone would quite happily pay that. Unfortunately, at that point, it's too late. You've just got to get through the event the best you can. But very much these preventative measures, and particularly the data, which is, the only option that works post an attack. So everything else works up to the attack. But if one gets through, then you're in trouble. What we do is we give you that ability to go back in time before the event, be it a physical or virtual event, or recover from that point, and then delete the bad actors or recover from the fire or whatever it is. So, there's two areas of concern for businesses. One is, the monetary loss to a business of downtime, but the other one is equally as bad, is the legal and legislative requirements around data privacy. So losing that data and then having to report that and potential fines is a significant impact on businesses as well. And if any of you guys are technical and would like a one-on-one demo of those solutions in action, Daryl can organize that for you guys. It's about a 40-minute Zoom meeting with one of my engineers, and they would actually go through and show you all this rather than me just telling you. They'll be able to show that in action. So on premise, you're talking minutes from that phone call to Daryl's team to when you're back up and running, and very much the same in the cloud. Daryl's team works off a portal that is one portal, one source of truth for us, and it allows you to see all that information and allow them to recover no matter where they are, be it home or in the office or on the road, and recover that mailbox for you again within minutes of you registering that there was a problem.
I think that's a good point, Peter, about, as we said in the beginning, because of the flexibility of the organizations, we're very happy to pilot some of these things if someone's interested. These may have raised a lot of questions. This is just beginning of conversations that we'd like to continue with. Our customers are here together with us for a long time. So we've got our contact details there. We have to thank Peter and the team for spending time with us today. And let's have the conversation keep going. And we're also super keen to have suggestions about other things people would like to put forward in terms of what they'd like to hear in these webinars, especially around this whole security recovery BCDR stuff, which we specialize in, and that 24/7 monitoring services. So there's no more questions. Thank you, everybody.